I took British Gas to the Energy Ombudsman in the UK about a complaint about my late dad's house, and 781 days later I'm able to share with you the result. I've been awarded, won and paid £255 in compensation. But this video isn't about the money. It's about what happens in the middle of all of that process when the Energy Ombudsman allows British Gas to dictate when the case was closed without including me, the party who was actually raising the complaint in the first place. I want to highlight a gap that I discovered in the middle of all of this and what it was like to go through. So let's start. 24th of May 2024, my dad passes away after a very quick run of ill health. He lived in his house for over 50 years, lived there mainly by himself after I moved out, the last of the 3 kids that he had to leave the house. And on the 28th of May, just a handful of days later, I contacted British Gas as a named executor. I put my name on the bill and I told them that he'd passed away, but I also told them at that point the house was empty. Nobody was living there. The property remained empty until September of 2025, when it was sold, completed and keys handed over to new owners on the 17th of that month. I went to the house the day before and I took a meter reading, and I called British Gas that next day, told them about the new owners and gave them the final meter reading and asked them to close the account. Fast forward to November of that same year, 2025, and I start getting debt letters arrive for an outstanding bill. A bill of £184 of gas usage. I call British Gas and I tell them at that point this can't be right, property was empty, and they tell me at that point they'll only speak to me about it if I pay the bill first. So I settle the £184 and they tell me that they'll look into it, and I hear nothing else. Then on the 30th of December 2025, I get another telling me that I owe them 62 pence on an estimated bill from when the property's been handed over till now. So at this stage, I'm out of the UK, travelling with my wife, so it makes things difficult to contact them. Super expensive on a phone. It takes a long time to get through. So I reach out to them online, I go through their chat service, I talk to an agent, they say they'll look into it. And at that point, we move into January of 2026. And now I raise a formal complaint with British Gas. And I state to them the property's been empty, I give them all the information, and I tell them at this point, I'm out of the country travelling. If you want to contact me, please do it through email communication. They confirm that will be the case. From January till February, they call me multiple times. At some points, up to 6 times in a single day, trying to speak to me, but it's coming through to me in the middle of the night. On the 29th of January, at one point, I get copied in on an email between 2 agents saying that they should just pay me compensation. I'm sure I probably wasn't meant to read that, but I did. And then at the end of February, I get a notification that British Gas hasn't been able to do anything with the complaint. And at this stage now, I can now take it to the Energy Ombudsman. So I do that. I take it to the Energy Ombudsman. I submit my case. I create a document with timelines, with screenshots of telephone calls about the request to only deal with me through email communications, share all of that with the Energy Ombudsman. In March, the Ombudsman accepts my case and says they'll review it. And then at the end of April, the Ombudsman rules and decides that British Gas is at fault here and fines them for a number of different grievances, not just the handling of the case, the closure of my dad's account, but the continual communications, the comms that they've shared, all of that, they get fined £255. And they're given a time period to make that payment. And they don't. Ultimately, they don't. We reach a point where an agent from British Gas reaches out to me at the start of June and now states, we'll make the payment, can you please give us your bank information? I'll provide the bank information and they tell me that in 7 business days I'll receive the payment. They then send communications to the Ombudsman and tell them everything has been handled. There was 2 outcomes from this. One, a cash settlement payment of £255, and 2, a written apology. I'll come back to that in a minute. But British Gas tells the Energy Ombudsman, we have satisfied these 2 outcomes, case is closed. And the Energy Ombudsman closes the case. All done, except I'm sitting in the middle of all of this and nothing happens. The 7 days comes and goes, no payment gets made by British Gas. Eventually I reach out to them, British Gas directly, and they come back to me and state, we're not willing to make the payment until you prove who you are. We want you to provide a bank statement. So, in this time period, I've been set up as the executor, I've paid the bill, I've given my card information, I've given my address information, I've then raised a complaint, I've then gone through the Ombudsman and provided all of that information, and everything was fine. But now that British Gas is to make the payment, they've decided that as a fraud protection, I should confirm who I am. So I try and supply that information, and it comes back as a mailbox that's unmanaged. So I've got nowhere to go. I can't reach anybody at British Gas because when I reply to the emails now, it goes to an unmanaged email box. And when I reach out to the Ombudsman tells me, case is closed, satisfied, and I'm left in the middle. So my last course of action here was to take to X, Twitter as it was formerly known, and I post a series of statements outlining the timeline, and I tag British Gas and the Energy Ombudsman. And in the same day, British Gas responds twice publicly to say, oh, this is not how we should handle this. Please message us through direct messages. I do that, and I receive around 20 direct messages asking me to tell them about the case, who I am, what's going on. And eventually somebody there says, okay, email us your bank statement. So I do. Again, an unmanaged email box, and it bounces back. So the final resolution that British Gas offer me, send my bank details through a direct message on X to close the case. I do that, and I get told at that point, no BACS transfer was ever set up. No payment was ever arranged. That never happened. So again, I highlight this to the Energy Ombudsman, and the Energy Ombudsman says, there's nothing we can do about it, the case is marked closed. So at this stage, I now notify the Energy Ombudsman that I want to raise a formal complaint there, that I'm not happy with how this has been handled, that they allowed British Gas to effectively close this case many days previously without actually making the payment. The agent there then tells me I'll raise a formal complaint, then 3 hours later emails me back to say he can't raise a formal complaint, and then emails me again to say if you want me to reach out to my line manager, I can raise a formal complaint. Fast forward a week later, nothing has happened with British Gas. So after providing all of the information, after all of the communications, nothing moves forward. I take to X one last time and publicly post again stating that I will do this every single week until somebody reads these comms. At this point, same day, I receive a communication from the Energy Ombudsman and a communication from British Gas. And this time I get told the payment will be made in 7 days. The payment is ultimately received, £255 is paid. Just editing this video and you won't believe this, but I've just checked the bank. They didn't pay me 255 quid, they paid me 225 quid. So they shortchanged me out of 30 quid at the end of all of this. So Rebecca, where's my £30? The member of staff there, her name is Rebecca, who looked after this. I thank Rebecca for taking ownership of this at the end. She emails me and she asks me, are you satisfied now with the case and the outcome of all of this, John? And at this point I ask Rebecca, do you think that the apology at the end of all of this that was provided by British Gas meets the requirements for me as a customer. Let me read that apology out to you. I can confirm that all of the above remedies have been completed for you, and I have arranged to send the monies as requested by yourself via BACS transfer to your direct bank account. As all of the remedies as per the decision have now been completed and implemented, I will also arrange to get the Ombudsman to mark the complaint as closed. That was the British Gas apology on behalf of my late father's account and the 781 days that it took me to manage this complaint. So I asked Rebecca, do you think that's appropriate? What do you think she said? She said, I understand your concerns regarding the wording of the apology and why you might feel that it didn't fully reflect the impact of this experience that you've had considering the circumstances. The Ombudsman required British Gas to provide a written apology for the customer service shortfalls. Following implementation of the remedies, the Ombudsman reviewed the evidence provided and accepted that the requirements of its decision had been met, subsequently marking the case as resolved. So British Gas won't move on the apology. I've received the £255, and ultimately what she states there is factually correct. However, all of that was done before any of these remedies were actually really put in place. And had it not been for my own persistence, chasing on X, the money wouldn't have been paid, the apology wouldn't have been made, and as far as the Energy Ombudsman was concerned, the case was marked as resolved. 781 days from first contact until now. 236 days from the first billing complaint to get the money. And 80 days after the Ombudsman awarded me the compensation, British Gas has finally paid it. How much does all that come out to? 33 pence a day. That's what I was awarded to chase a company who incorrectly billed me on behalf of my late father's house. 33 pence a day. It's over. I'm glad it's over. But don't give up, because ultimately it wasn't about the money in all of this. It was about holding not just one, but two major organisations to account. I've got my apology. You can let me know down below what you think of all of that. Thank you so much to everybody who's followed this journey. I've talked about it regularly on this channel, my frustrations. I'm glad it's over. Thanks everyone.